Hi everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. It looks like we have about three-quarters and we still have a bunch of people joining right now, so we'll start in just a couple minutes. So bear with us. Thanks. All right, hello. I'm Eric Fullerton, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Blizzard Internet Marketing. I think there still will be some people joining us. We've got about half the people that registered for the webinar. Um, First, I just want to check in, and if not everyone has to respond, but I just want to double check everyone can hear me okay. So if someone could type in the chat that you can hear okay, that would be great. We just got to do a test to make sure everything's working. And there should be a chat window. All right. Well, thank you, Amy. I appreciate you responding. Um, Excellent, excellent. Very good to hear. Okay, so, all right. I appreciate everyone's responses. It looks like the chat's working well too. This is a good place in that chat window if you have a choice to be able to ask me a question at any time during the seminar. You can post it publicly. Sometimes if you post questions publicly, it prevents other people from duplicating a question, but if you also want to post it privately to me, I'll see that as well, and I will try and get to those questions as we go through the webinar itself. Right now, I'm broadcasting from Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Most of you are existing customers of Blizzard Internet Marketing, so thank you very much for taking time out of your day today to join us. I'm excited to be presenting to you today the top 5 online marketing tactics for high return on investment. And this is a precursor to a presentation I'll be doing next week in Denver, Colorado for the Destination Summit. And I thought I would test it out on you folks first and kind of see what questions came up in case I can modify it even further from what I've done. But essentially, I've taken the best of the best of many presentations I've done recently and kind of consolidated it down into one presentation into kind of a top 5. So this is a very current distilled list of things. We'll get very tactical in a couple areas, and we'll also do a couple more general broad scope things. So in the case where you want more information about a specific thing, feel free to post a question, or if you have an interest in getting more information about a specific area, most of these topical areas also have a white paper that I can send you to give you the real tactical outline of steps that you need to do in order to implement a few of these things. And I think I would just ask if you wanted a specific white paper on one of these areas, just let me know by sending me an email at eric@blizzardinternet.com, and I'll go ahead and get that over to you. or I know most of you work with some of our specialists and project managers as well, and they have access to this information also. So again, thanks for joining us today, and off we go. Okay, so the top 5 things we will be talking about today, I assume everyone can now see my screen, are we're going to be looking at a few advanced SEO tactics that are definitely making a bigger impact in the way that people get to your website and help generate demand. We're also going to talk about Google Local, Google Plus, and Google Places, and kind of how your Google Plus profile and account for as a business really has an impact on not only the interaction that you have with your customers, but also what you can do to improve your rankings in Google for your website as well. And then we'll go into some of the new Facebook remarketing stuff. This is one of those places where I probably won't take as deep of a dive because there's a lot of technical stuff behind it, but certainly I can get into more specific things as we go. Okay, just real quick, I had one question already. Somebody was having an issue with some buffering. It could be the internet access, and you guys might want to test muting your microphones and also turning off your video. I think I disabled video by default for everyone, but if your video is displaying on your screen, you may want to click the button that's up in the center of the screen that shows a little video icon, and that will help with some of the internet access issues and prevent things from getting into a buffering state. So that should help you out a little bit there, Louise. So the last 2 things are we're gonna talk about are getting past like kind of the bots. The majority of web traffic out there is automated web traffic, meaning that it's non-human. And we're going to look at ways that we can improve our websites to not only improve conversions, but also make sure we're building them not for the general site traffic that Google Analytics has, but more for the users that are going to buy something from us. And last but not least, we're going to kind of bring all of this together by talking about automation and doing blogging, which is something that has started many years ago, but still several people haven't embraced this as a real important strategy. And your blog can also be leveraged to be able to help manage distributing and marketing your content online in an automated fashion. And we'll get into that a little more deeply as well. Okay, so Google authorship and rich snippets. What we're talking about here is the schema.org semantic markup. And so when I say semantic markup, we're sorry to see you go, Luis. When we say semantic markup, we're talking about the back end. I was thinking about doing a screenshot of this, but most people these days don't have to deal so much in source code of a website in order to really dive in and figure out how to get your data structured so that the bots from search engines and other entities can go through and understand what data is behind the scenes of your website. So we're talking about specific web pages and having structured data tagged up so that it knows exactly what that data is. And then if you do that, you're essentially handing that important data that you might have on your website almost on a silver platter, and you end up getting much more relevant results and better play in the search engines overall. So a couple of the ones that we talk about, since we are going to talk a little bit about blogging a little bit later in this presentation, is this notion of the authorship. And so there's several ways to tag up your authorship, but if you're doing this correctly in the back end with your semantic markup or your rich snippets, then things like your profile picture and your name of your author are going to show up in the search results of Google. And this is really important, as we're going to find out in a second, because it dramatically improves your click-through rates for when you have some kind of this multimedia showing up on a text screen of otherwise just text results from your competitors who are also trying to rank for similar terms. The other important thing that that is relevant for us as a vacation rental industry is that we have reviews, and reviews can come in the form of many sources. One of the most important ones we've identified is the Google Plus one, and we're going to get into that in the next set of slides after this. But having these orange stars in your search results really make a big difference in terms of getting the eyeballs to look at your listing in Google results, even if it's not in the top 3. But it also gives you a lot more credibility for people looking to actually click through and do something. If you don't have these reviews and your competitors do, you're really losing out in the game here. So authorship and reviews are just 2 examples of what structured data can do on a web page itself in order to help you enhance your listings in Google. There are several other ways to do that, and more are coming out and being adopted by Google, and it's constantly changing. So we have started to make a move to try and mark up as much structured data in the back end as possible in order to make sure that that silver platter of content and information that we're providing, particularly information that gives us credibility, but also gives us the ability to integrate results such as like an event and event information and dates and times of things that are happening that have timeliness to them. Will give you that extra boost and give you credibility in the search results. So are there any questions about the general markup that we just talked about? We're going to talk a little bit about these stars and how they work a little bit later, but that's good. So if you didn't believe what I just touched on earlier, Eric Schmidt, who's the CEO of Google last year, actually said this in a meeting, in a conference. He says, within the search results, the information tied to verified online profiles, which is the authorship part of the tagging that we're talking about, will be ranked higher than content without such verification, which will result in the most users naturally clicking on the top of the verified results. So what we're talking about here, he says the true cost of remaining anonymous, meaning you don't have your structured data or your markup set in, then you are going to be in Google's eyes irrelevant. And the name of the game, anytime we're playing with SEO at all in terms of building a foundation for our web pages, our blog pages, or our website, or any part of our online profile that we're building, is all about relevance. So this is highly critical in terms of making sure that, and I can tell you most people haven't done this yet. I know several of our customers, and I think a few people even on this call, have integrated some structured data and the schema markup on their pages. And the result of doing this, some of the testing that's happened as a result, this is on the right-hand side you see here, this is the eye tracking summary of how this goes. So the results that we see at the top here are actually local results for this particular search term. And then if you go down here, somebody actually wrote a blog and their picture's down there, and you can tell that even though they're like the 4th or 5th one down in the search results, their picture and maybe the stars that they had underneath there actually drew the eyes to that search result. So it should be obvious here at this point. In this particular test, click-through rates increased by 150%. And I want to make sure to clarify something about the importance of doing SEO correctly, is that it's not just about putting keyword phrases in your metadata. And meta tags are another form of structured data. The blue part is the title, and the text, the black text underneath that is typically your description. And if you are enticing, we use that not only to add a keyword or a couple keyword phrases in, but we try and also talk to a user. And so that's just one step. What Google's enabling us to do is also put in our pictures and show credibility with how many people are following us on Google Plus, or how many circles we're in, or what our reviews are for the particular brand that's getting ranked in this. And all of those things contribute to higher click-through rates, which give us a much better chance of getting the person to click from the Google search results to our website. And the way to tell if your Google results are actually performing for you is in Google Analytics. You can see, and actually Google Webmaster Tools is almost a little more clear on this. You can see the listing of the keyword phrases that people are searching for and coming to your site on. And if you're getting hundreds of thousands of impressions and you have an average ranking of 2 or 3, but you're getting a really tiny click-through rate, that means that your SEO probably needs to be relooked at, and or potentially your competitors have structured data in the back end of their website. And so these are the things that we can help you interpret in this regard and actually improve to get the click-through rates. So this is just the first part of the game, is getting people to your site. And the majority of this ROI presentation is talking about generating the demand. And generating the demand to your site is probably the biggest problem most websites now have in terms of just the general noise that's out there of data and information, and it's just becoming more and more competitive, particularly because of how social media sites have started to become more integrated with the way search results are displayed, and also how people consume information and where they're looking to get their information. So this is a point that I'd like to make, and it's more of like a bonus key point, but the whole idea behind all of this is really asking yourself, like, am I standing out from the crowd? Am I able to get like a better search engine result listing, or do I have multiple search engine result listings that enable users who are looking for something that I have to sell, or I'm solving some problem for something, and am I standing out? If you're standing out in these search results, you're going to be winning the game. So as I pointed out earlier, this top part was in the local results, and we're going to talk about that here shortly too. But the biggest thing is making sure this the author tags and your reviews are not only getting listed on Google or Google Plus, or at least on third-party channels, and then either fed up to your website and dealt with on your Google Plus profile. So any questions about how that works? So in terms of authorship, it's really easy to do this. We first maybe have to differentiate between your Google Plus account that you have for your business account, and also a personality or your personal Google Plus account. Because your Google Corporate Plus account is something where you're really showcasing the products and information that you have, and ideally building up an audience and getting a lot of traction from people who are searching for something that you might have, whether it's a vacation rental in a certain town or location, or so on. When you have that, and you are, for example, blogging, which I think is probably the best example, but you can do this with any content on your website. What you're really talking about here is having a personality or an author that has a sort of I guess you can call it like it's like a personal business Gmail account, and this is where your authorship cannot be identified. So not only are you personalizing your content with an actual photo of a person, but you're also really getting into building up your business Google Plus profile as well as your blogs and giving them more credibility. So you have to make sure that your Google Plus personal account has a photo in it, and that the bylines, typically a byline is that little square that's at the bottom of a blog post that kind of has a profile about the person, where it actually has the picture and it has the name and it tells a little bit about you and maybe has a link to your website. And And you just need to make sure that that byline at the bottom of every blog post, which is in the back end tagged up with authorship schema, really matches your Google Plus personal name. So we use a personality online here at Blizzard, and that's Marge Blizzard. And Marge doesn't technically exist because multiple experts and specialists that we have here in the company leverage that for many things that we do. But our personality, we have a separate Google Plus page for our business, but it's all tied back to that personal email address that is part of this. So if, for example, your email is not the same as the domain that you registered your Google Plus account under, all you have to do is make sure there's also a link to your Google Plus account, and then Google knows to go to your Google Plus account and pull that profile picture and can actually feed that up automatically for relevant blog posts that come up in the search engine results. So any questions about how that works? And this is certainly one of those things that if there's specific questions, because it can get a little tricky, and this touches on a point that we're going to make a little later about being consistent about the email address that you use across all of your social media channels and your authorship, because that authorship profile that you develop over time, as you produce more content and have more interactions with people in the world, is going to give you and your website more credibility in the end. So that's pretty much the crux of how we're doing like an authorship markup. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about Facebook remarketing. I was fortunate to meet a Facebook marketing manager who I kind of had a little bit of an exchange with in terms of, really how effective is this custom audiences, and I don't know if any of you have heard of the lookalike yet. And Facebook custom audiences, this is an opportunity for you to do one of two things. I think a lot of you do pay-per-click with us, or maybe you do it on your own. And it's very similar to Google's pay-per-click model, where you have a couple of different options where you can buy paid ads in Google search results, or its display network, and repurpose those ads across the internet universe. Facebook, they kind of have their own universe. If you're not aware, they have the largest and most engaged audience of all the social media networks. Gives you the ability to leverage what many people call like their big data, which is all of the information that Google or that Facebook has about a certain person and their likes and interests and the other people that they interact with. So they actually, in their algorithm, can very clearly see if you are able to get in front of a customer that has engaged with you to some extent. Then Facebook could also recommend a lookalike, which is what they call it, which is their friends and friends of friends and onward, who may have a similar interest track and may be able to purchase or be interested in a certain campaign that you're looking at marketing to. So just generally how this works, and this is only one particular way that Facebook can be leveraged for this remarketing exercise. What you do is you can take a segmented, and notice I used the word segmented, portion of your database for people that have interacted with you in some way. So I'm going to use an example of you may have 10,000 email addresses, but let's say 500 of those email addresses came from a landing page from a previous campaign that you had where people were interested in coming out to stay in your property or leverage your services for a specific event, which is like an annual event at your location. You can actually segment out those email addresses for the people who signed up on that landing page last year but may or may not have bought from you in the past. Upload that database of emails, so now we have a segmented list. upload them into Facebook, and then Facebook will go ahead and match those email addresses to the Facebook profiles that are available. And then you're basically paying to have a display ad of a new campaign, which could be similar to the previous years, in a couple different ways on the Facebook pages. So if you wanted to take that even further, you could activate the lookalike audience, where it'll take that match and look at people who are like these other people that were matched up from your initial list, and then market to people who are actually new customers. So technically speaking, you're doing both remarketing and potentially getting new customers to click through. If your ad is obviously compelling enough to get more click-throughs, and it would ideally be pushed all the way through to a landing page that converts, then you are looking at growing your potential sales volume for a specific campaign. So all that effort you put into putting out a special or some kind of campaign to attract people to your destination will make a huge difference and actually give you a lot more ROI than for a smaller amount of money than many similar examples that we've seen with some of our pay-per-click campaigns. Now, the other caveat I have here is that the most successful Facebook custom audience campaigns that I've read about and also seen also are a part of a comprehensive campaign. So this should just be one element of what you're doing. I don't recommend just putting all your eggs into the Facebook basket, but the way that they are enabling users of Facebook for Facebook advertising to very highly target customers is really amazing. And I think this is a real big play for Facebook because this is fairly new. It just came out, at the end of last year, and I believe, and from hearing other anecdotal evidence, if you do this correctly and correctly segment and then get the right message at the right time to a customer, then your chances of getting higher conversions and more ROI for the little amount of money that you have to spend is really huge. And I encourage you to do something like this. It's fairly simple to manage on your own, but if you want to do it correctly, I recommend speaking to one of our specialists, and we can both walk you through it and then help you with an initial campaign. But consider also that the impact that you can have from a brand awareness perspective about a certain campaign that you might be going after is greatly increased when that's partnered with like an email marketing campaign, a very specific Google pay-per-click campaign, and also several other channels like your print media and some of the other things that you can be doing. Because the more chances you have of getting in front of a customer, the more likely they are to engage with it. And in particular, the more brand awareness that you have, the age-old, all the way back to when print media was the way to go, is still true in terms of branding, where people need 6 to 8 impressions of a certain message in order to really say, okay, what's the deal with this? And the other thing that really happens with some of this is you potentially start to see, if you have a like button in there and you see that one of your friends have liked it, then, or one of their friends have liked it, then the likelihood of them kind of checking it out as well, or liking it, or what have you, or engaging with that message is a lot greater also. So sometimes those people will get through in that page from another medium like email or what have you, but the biggest thing is that all of that can be tracked specifically and independently of each other, and you can tell which things are working and not. And this is also another point to where you may want to consider doing testing as well, which we're going to talk about a little bit towards the end here. So this is just a screenshot of one of our customers that uses this. It's Park City Lodging. I'm not really giving away any proprietary information, but essentially what you see here is this is how the various ways that you can manage your audiences are. So you can create an audience based on an upload of an Excel file with people's email addresses. If you use MailChimp as an email provider, it'll actually sync with MailChimp to get to those email lists. As well, like you can create a list of people who have taken a specific action on your website. So as I mentioned in my example earlier, like if you gathered emails from a landing page that was created of a specific campaign, you can do a specific remarketing to that audience in particular. You can also do, create a list of people who have done something with a mobile app. So many of you know we partner with the Glad to Have You app. There's various ways you can leverage actions that were taken on that mobile app, like if they booked reservations at a certain restaurant through that app, or they went to a particular place or registered for something. You can download that information and market to them in the future as a result of that, which could increase the likelihood of them coming back in the future. And then the way to kind of take this on to the lookalike as well is you can, if your audience becomes too small because you segmented it too low, that's where the lookalike stuff really has a lot of value because it targets the people, as I said before, who are similar to someone in your custom audience list. So consider this, that this is a great way to help you reach people who are really similar in your current customers, so you can get more fans on your Facebook page. They can go off Facebook to make a purchase. You can have some kind of compelling offer, like some kind of coupon offer or what have you. And overall, through all of this, you're definitely creating brand awareness, which helps on a number of levels. So any questions kind of about that? Okay, good. And we do have some recent information regarding that as well. So one of the biggest things that is for us to really look at is why Google Plus is important. I can remember back in like 2004 when I had SEO and web clients, and I was strongly encouraging them to be on Facebook, and that was before Facebook had business pages. And people were skeptical of this was, and there still is some skepticism, and this still blows my mind that social media can be effective for generating sales. Facebook now, with this whole custom audiences thing, is the best way to generate sales for your brand using the Facebook channel. That's the bottom line, with a high return on investment. Google Plus has many facets to it, which can benefit both your ability to interact with customers who use that channel. It's also the fastest growing social media channel right now that's out there, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down too much. They are not quite as big, obviously. I think it's a little more than half as big as what Facebook is, but it also has a super high level of engagement. And I definitely think if you haven't done more with your Google Plus business page, or even personally, to just go in and play with it when you have time, like what most people do when they're sitting in front of the TV and looking at Facebook and doing that, switch back and forth between Facebook and Google Plus and really look at how people are engaging with that content. And I'm going to show you here real quick too how that's important from a consistency standpoint. So obviously you've set up your Facebook page. Ideally, your Facebook page and your other social media channels are all set up with a consistent email address, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the consistency amongst having that whole profile established through one email address is really key, and it's one of the bigger challenges that we see customers that are new that come to us, is that they've set up a Facebook page with the owner's email address, and they've set up the Google Plus account with like the marketing person's email address, and then they have one general company address that does the Twitter stuff, and that really dilutes the potential effectiveness for all of this to really work in sync. So with Google Plus, we're also going to talk a little bit about local as well, and we're really kind of talking about how your Google Plus page has an impact on your website and how it ranks. This is a slide that actually talks about it's called the Spearman correlation, but it's really the what is the relationship between online activity or things that you do on your website, both on your website and off your website, in order to impact search rankings. Now, this stuff, obviously changes a lot, and it's something that us SEO people like to call the Google dance. When they do an algorithm update, all of these things could totally switch around and change up again. But for the most part, it's been consistent over the past couple years. The only major change is these ones that you see at the top here, where when you start looking at things like at the bottom of this slide is the position of the keyword in the title, which before that used to have a dramatic impact on how highly you would rank versus your competitors in Google. And now you can see that there are so many other factors involved in getting your page of content ranked in Google. So the highest correlation that they've been able to find, and we have specialists who've done actual tests on this with clients where they do campaigns just specifically by promoting specific blog posts through the Google Plus channels with a well-established Google Plus page. And this is where you really can get a major impact really fast with your content that you're putting out there. So I wanted to show this slide to show you that Google Plus is, in terms of search rankings, even though Google won't openly admit it, I've seen 3 different takes from Matt Cutts, is somebody that I follow pretty regularly in the Google world. And if some of you haven't heard of him, he's been around for years, and he's kind of the spokesman for Google when people ask him technical questions about how things work in Google's algorithm. And often he'll answer very generally and not take a position, but sometimes we catch him off guard a little bit where someone will record him like with a beer in his hand saying, yeah, it does have a huge impact on it. And whether it's intended or not, it's likely what we've seen in the past is that right now this is the reality. And while this might change, they are really wanting people to get engaged with Google. And it's pretty clear that if I have my own property on Google Plus, like if I own Google, I'm not going to want Facebook interactions to have more of an impact than what my own social media area does. So that to me is just a logical deduction from how that might be important. But consider that all of these other social media channels that are in the orange and above, really make a difference by helping create backlinks and also awareness and engagement with your content. And we're going to talk about how to leverage that so you don't have to be logging into each individual social media place every time in order just to get some relevance for a blog post that you might have just put out for a promotion or what have you. So Google Plus is the biggest one on the block right now from that perspective. I wanted to show you guys this slide because what we started with when we started doing SEO and building out these websites to rank in search engines was the organic search in the dark blue. And then social media came along, and about around the same time, Google was starting to do more stuff with local search. Now, local search has become more and more important, and in order to really play in all of these worlds and have the biggest impact on all of your channels that you have online, then you really have to be playing in the local search world. Now, how is this relevant for search results as an example? Well, if I just type in vacation rentals in Google, what I see here is hugely important in terms of how some of these results might come up. So you can tell in the red here, these are all paid ads. So a comprehensive campaign that has good social media, a strong Google Plus presence, and a Google local profile that's correctly set up, will actually be able to play in all of these areas, and you'll be able to have more real estate on a Google search results page. Now, some of you may have already seen too the Google Carousel that's been rolling out, and it's getting more and more widespread with various products when you search, and that's with that big black bar at the top. And what that does is push all of this stuff down with a bunch of images at the top, so that even all of the the organic search results, which are right here, get less and less important. Now, that's not to say that SEO is not important anymore. I've seen a lot of articles out there about Google, about SEO being dead because Google's trying to like basically crush it out. And from the looks of it, you know, when you see this, and actually this is a page that was interesting to me because often I'll see more of the local results being even higher and only two or three of these things being shown in the organic results. But when you have the map over here to the right, which is an eye catcher, and then you have these little ads, which actually now have a little ad next to it, so people not only know that they're an ad, but also Google knows, you know, after they launched out the review stars, that having that little orange thing draws people eyes to those ads, which is where they make money, of course. And you can see over here to the right the Colorado Vacation Rentals, where there's the stars there. They obviously have some good reviews in Google, and several of them in order to aggregate those. Another one is all the way down at the bottom there. It's the Cedar Lodge Motel, and they have 15 Google reviews and a link to their Google Plus page, and it actually even shows a price for how much you can buy their property for. And if you guys like, we can go check out their page. But the game here is playing both in, and these are local results at the bottom as well. We call this used to be Google Places, now it's Google, you know, now it's really part of the Google local overall map. So to really play on this Google search page, no matter what you're selling, you have to have a strong Google Plus for Business page that's all tied together, and is consistent with things on your website for your SEO. And you also have to have a solid pay-per-click campaign too, where you're not spending, you know, thousands of dollars, but enough to be able to rank well for really key terms that make sense in all of these ad areas as well. So that's how you get the real estate on the page. So I have a question from Colleen, and she says, our B&B Google Plus page is linked to her personal account. Can I create a false person like Mary Bed and Breakfast with my domain name email? You certainly can do that, Colleen. And what happens is it's actually somewhat difficult to do the switchover or change, and it's something that we have some specialists here who actually we have people who from Google who help us with kind of converting these. So while it is possible, it's a little bit difficult to do, and I can tell you that anecdotally, people who have tried to do it on their own have had mixed success with doing that. So changing it after you've already established it is much harder than just kind of doing something from scratch. So while I think there's a couple different ways to answer your question, another thing to consider is that if you don't have a lot of traction on your Google Plus page right now, it may make sense to just scrap it and start afresh with the fresh profile, and one that you're also going to use for your authorship, and one that you're going to use for your social media channels, et cetera, et cetera. So keep that in mind when you're doing that. And certainly this is something we can discuss in more depth, but keep in mind also when you're connecting this, I know I've been talking a lot about our Google Plus for Business page, but this is also, you know, you go to maps.google.com and make sure we call it the NAP, which is the name, address, phone number, also has consistency. So while everything kind of almost centralizes at the email address that you use consistently amongst these channels, it also is a name, address, phone number, the one that you have in your footer of your website, the one that's actually your physical address that you register for with these profiles, and the one that gets distributed out to directories. The other thing is google.com business / places for business. And that's another place where you want to create that consistency with your Google Plus page. And then you want that all linked up with your YouTube account that is also registered with that address. And my personal choice on doing these things is to actually create a Gmail account that will do this. You don't have to have an email with your domain, although you can. Having a Gmail account gives you the ability to kind of create this pseudo persona that can be managed by multiple people. And let's say your marketing director or somebody who manages this account for you decides to leave, or even if the owner decides to sell the property that you have, like your bed and breakfast or what have you, then it's very easy for them to go in and change the password on that Google that Gmail account, and then change the passwords in all of those other areas that you've done it consistently across the board. And that way they don't have to start everything from scratch. And I personally believe that there is inherent value in having a well-established online presence through all these channels that can add to your business value as well, particularly if you can prove interactions and the amount of people that are following you and so on. So it makes your business much more marketable in that regard. So, and there's several different areas in the Google Plus profile that we want to look at. But the other part of this name, address, phone number that we needed to touch on is that there's this notion that it still makes sense to have your name, address, phone number also consistent throughout many other channels out there in cyberspace. And there's lots of directories that you can be registered for. And there's also services that can help you submit to these directories to make sure you get it correctly submitted. And again, like having everything consistent is really key. You can use a website called whitespark.ca to be able to find out what the top citation sources are for a specific area that you live in. This one in particular is Denver, so Yelp is really, really important in Denver, as is the Yellow Pages, City Search, Super Pages, Dexnose, and Moz actually bought GetListed.org, who used to put out a lot of really good content in regards to seeing how the different directories would feed information to the various search engines and other important online portals. So some of these services aggregate the listings and are able to do submissions to these so that you do have the consistency that you need to have a very strong and solid online presence. So not only does this give you credibility with the search engines and online things, but if there's a particular search engine phrase that your website doesn't rank for, and there's usually what happens when a lot of websites don't rank for a particular keyword phrase, a lot of times these directories come up. And if you're listed in all these directories, it's very likely that that person might end up getting to your site as a result of that. So this is kind of helps with the infill of the other places you might be missing out on the search engines. And it's important to understand where those gaps are so that as you move forward and you remain consistent across these channels, you can find success via these other places that will give your brand some credibility. Like, for example, the Better Business Bureau is one of those that has a dual purpose. So, and I also recommend doing your local things like your chambers and associations that you're members of and things like that as well, because that adds more credibility to your website presence as a whole. So that's just a quick overview of the Google Plus and local. The main point I do want to touch on there is that, and this is a great slide to kind of illustrate this, that you get your Google profile and your local page all set up, and you put all your Google accounts under one username and password and use the email address at your domain. Then you get connected to all of these places, the social media channels and so on. And then you start working on your reviews. And after that, while you're doing that, you can build up your citations in the other directories and other web assets that are much more established out there. And that's where some of the stuff starts to turn into more traffic that's targeted, and you get higher return on investment as a result. All right. So moving right along, we have about 10 minutes left, and we are getting close. Uh, so this business week that says blogs will change your business. This was back from 2004 and 2005, right around that time. And this was something whenever I got a new website customer, no matter what they were selling, uh, if they weren't willing to change their website to an open source platform like WordPress, there's several others out there like Drupal and some other things too on the .NET world, uh, that if you didn't have a blog, you're really missing the boat, because then you had to go to your web developer and spend a lot of money to build a new page of content. Well, pages and blog posts kind of have a different, are treated differently by Google. Pages tend to have a little more staying power and should have some relevance. And I can tell you one relevant aspect of getting good search rankings to make sure you can create the audiences is making sure your content is freshened up. And while there's no real set in stone formula about how often you need to freshen up your content, it certainly doesn't hurt to change things up a little bit and update the content that's there. And when I say content, I'm not just talking about words. I'm talking about multimedia as well. So you're also talking about videos, pictures, just changing stuff up a little bit, and even tuning up the meta tags as you will. Blogs give you a lot more flexibility in terms of keeping content fresh and relevant. You can do a blog post about a particular item, whether it's an event or an activity that goes on nearby where you're at, and allow comments to be generated that are obviously filtered from the spam bots that are out there. And that, by virtue of users doing something to that page of content, that blog post, you actually are keeping that blog post relevant, and it can still be ranked in the search engines, as well as in some cases, or even better than a static page of content that's been out there for a while and hasn't been touched. Because people's comments that get added to a blog make it more fresh, more relevant, and it adds more to the overall strength of that particular blog post. So there's other ways people can interact as well, because as you saw in that previous graph, like Facebook sharing and liking, if those functions are embedded on those pages that you have, these blog posts in particular, Google is tracking every action that happens on your website to some degree, and it assigns some value to that in that it attributes it to the algorithm and how relevant it is. So any form of engagement on your page is a signal to Google that this is valuable in some way. So keeping that all in mind. Now, the question comes, how do I leverage my blog and I don't have time to blog? And actually I have a poll here, so I'll open it up just to see what we have here. So I'm going to start a poll, and it should pop up on your screen. And it's basically, I just want to know from your standpoint how often you blog. And then I'm going to keep this open for a little bit while I'm talking, and you guys can go ahead and vote. And this is also a little experiment too, because I haven't used the poll feature yet. But the notion is that if you are blogging and you just put it out there, and maybe it's fed to your homepage, so you get that link because it gets crawled and so on, wouldn't it be more powerful if your blog could rank like immediately, and you could leverage that as part of a comprehensive campaign that you're doing, where literally it takes only moments to re-leverage stuff that you just put together for your email, and re-leverage pictures or a video that you might have, and technically the blog could be the funnel down into your conversion page, but it should also offer a lot of value to your customers as well in terms of what information you're doing. There's also SEO value to it as well in terms of making your site relevant as a whole. So the notion is that in the past we used to have to go to all of our social media channels and log in, and then post a link back to our blog post that we just did. And I made a lot of money spending a lot of time doing that. Well, I can actually caveat that by saying I made money spending a lot of time on that, but not as much as I could have. And then there were some services that would aggregate this stuff for you. and one of them was ping.fm, and so you could use that and plug it into your WordPress, and then it would distribute this out. Now WordPress has some built-in functionality that you can enable and add any or all of your profiles. We just chose these four because we feel they're the most important to some degree for whatever purposes, and there's large audiences leveraging this, where it'll automatically post the title of your blog, which is the most important part of the content that you have, to the social media channel. And in some cases, if you have a picture also on your blog post, it'll post that picture up as well. So now you just put content out to the world because it automatically posts that up with a link back to that blog, and that blog then can have several calls to action, maybe leading into enticing people to click to see what offer you're putting out there or what have you. And this is super powerful, not only in getting that particular blog post to rank when people are searching for like a particular event or activity in your area. Your blog post, if it's timely enough, will link well with that. And it's a thing that you have to kind of keep up with and keep fresh. And it does keep the search engine spiders and such coming back to your site very regularly. The other thing I would put in there is that at some point, and maybe at the end of your title with blog posts, is where I will use hashtags. And I'm sure some of you remember The Sound of Music as an example. We don't overuse hashtags, but you can create your own that are relevant for like a specific event, or if you're talking about a special, like so it's like, you know, # discount lodging or # vacation rental or what have you. This is kind of the front-facing. A hashtag is a front-facing kind of semantic markup, if you will, that users use. So instead of going on the back end and marking up something with what it's relevant for, it's on the front end, and people can search for things that are relevant for that hashtag, and it is getting used by a lot of people. So there are the right and wrong way to use hashtags, but it's important if you tag that up and it goes out to all of these channels, then you're playing in their world as well for potential engagement. So now you have the ability, particularly if you have WordPress, which I believe most of you do, to automate your posts that go out in your blogs to get traffic back to your website from social media channels and put them into your sales funnel so you can get higher conversions, and you're not having to spend as much time doing it. So hopefully you see the value of doing that, and I just can't emphasize it enough. It's so important these days. All right, so lastly, we have a few minutes left, and real quick, actually, I'll look at this poll to see. I'm going to go ahead and end it, and let's see here. I'll just make the results public. So hopefully you should see that. So 50% of you that are on the call, on the webinar right now, blog more than once a week, which is what I recommend. I think people can be really effective if they're blogging at least 3 times a week, but you can blog 10 times a week, and the more you're in front of your audiences, the better. And then 50% don't. So if you're not blogging right now, that's something you really need to consider as part of your marketing mix. It's an inexpensive way to really get your content out there in front of the eyeballs that you've spent a lot of time and energy getting on all of your social media channels. Now, this doesn't preclude you from engaging with your audience, because what happens is people will engage with that post as opposed to clicking through because they want to stay on Facebook, and you have to have the notifications there so that you can re-engage with that customer when they ask you questions or do something like that. And they'll like that post and do things, and all that builds up relevance towards this blog post that you just put up. So this is hugely important. 50%, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed it. I thought it would be more than that. So, all right, what we have here now is, you have this thing out here on the internet, and this is what I'm going to end with, is that 61% of the traffic that's out there are all kinds of just automated bots that are out crawling the internet, and Google's doing a lot to help, and a lot of these companies, the bigger companies, are out there trying to get, really pare down this non-human traffic, in particular the spammers, and if you can tell, that's dropped 75%. So when you see Google's algorithms, shifting search results, the main reason why is because they've done things to adjust so that the spammers can't really go in and exploit their algorithm for their benefit. And a lot of those sites are nefarious sites like porn sites or gambling sites or Viagra sites or what have you. So you're clear, like often when you just look at your Google Analytics, I'm not suggesting that 61% of what you see in Google Analytics is the human traffic, because a lot of it, most of it is or should be. You just need to understand that this is kind of what we're dealing with on the level of the internet and what that looks like. So, and unfortunately, bots are getting more and more. Some are scrapers, some are just impersonators. There's all kinds of reasons why they do this. And it is important here also to note that the best way to really understand how a person is converting is that most of you have online booking capabilities. And that a bot is not going to put a credit card number in on your website to actually book a reservation. That being said, there are a lot of things on your website you could test so that you can make sure that the human users that are coming to your website are actually there to convert and will be able to perform an action. And if you're getting a high bounce rate on a particular page, or there's other signals in Google Analytics that will indicate that something is not effective, and we can actually go through those things with you more specifically. But typically the first thing we look at is bounce rate. You can actually start to make adjustments for your page, or if you're noticing that they're not clicking on the search the widget to view your properties, or they stop on a property page and don't go any further, a lot of times this will indicate that they are that something is not quite right with the usability of your web page. So often what we'll do is test things like colors of buttons, like and also even the words that are in the buttons. So it's like check availability versus book now, red color versus an orange color versus a green color. And the way to do this is really great because this is out of beta now. We've been doing this for a couple years, where we would test things like we have basically a landing page. So that could be your home page as an example. And let's say you have a website that has a vertical booking widget over a picture on the home page. We could test it to be a horizontal booking widget that goes across the bottom of that picture. And we also find that when we do these things often and then set a goal, so it goes into your goal funnel, and your goal page would be something like the checkout screen, or sometimes even at minimum the credit card screen where they actually put in their credit card, and that's your measure for your goal. But we do find that when we test these things, even if the design is somewhat similar, sometimes the users are different and they'll perform differently company to company across. So we'll test the same assumptions with sites that we thought would, because of the similar design, actually have a different audience that's working with them, that buys from them. So testing your buttons, testing any kind of assumption that you have. If you have an idea about how to get somebody deeper into your sales funnel faster, that's a good testable thing. It's better to test it where you have a second page that has the variation of the first one that you did, and then you have a goal set up so that once they get to that goal, it creates a statistical significance in Google Analytics so you can view which one performed better and will continuously increase the amount of conversions that you get overall on your website. So A/B testing is really fun. I love doing it, and we love getting better results for our customers. And if ever you have an idea about what you want to change on your site, the best way to do it is start with a test. And I encourage people to continuously test new things so that you're always evolving your site and its usability to improve it overall. Another thing you can test too is the level of engagement on various campaigns that you do. So you can have one campaign that sends out an email with one picture, or you send out one Facebook post with one picture and then another Facebook post with a second picture because you couldn't decide between the two. So testing doesn't just have to be on your website. It can also take the form of a different campaign in your Google Analytics, so you can continuously test how many people are engaging with that and actually doing more with it. So having said that, we've come to the end of our presentation, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it, and I know there aren't any questions right now currently posted, but I will say that if there are any follow-up questions that you have, again, my email address is eric@blizzardinternet.com. You can also call into the office and talk to me that way as well. I did enjoy having you with us today, and I'm certainly glad that I had an opportunity to speak with you all, and I hope you got a lot of value out of the presentation. So again, thanks for joining us, and if you ever, obviously all of these are things that our specialists and experts can help you with if you're interested in a specific focused plan that we can help you with. We're happy to do so. All right, have a good day.